Okay, this is a recent pyramid burial that's been found in Lebanon, or what we call Anatolia, or modern day Turkey, but back then it would have been Asia Minor, effectively. And it says here it's been updated 12th of January 2021, so I'm putting this out 2 days after it came out. But it says updated, but they need to update it one more time. For the headline here is 2,000-year-old limestone pyramid tomb discovered in Lebanon. When we get into this, we'll find out that this is a pyramid that predates the Egyptian pyramids, dating by over 2,000 years. So maybe they should say 2,000-year older limestone pyramid discovered in Lebanon. You can see this pyramid type of dolmen setup that they've got here with worked stone. It's in the center of this, and it hasn't been fully excavated out, but also in the picture right in the foreground to the left and all across it you can see worked stone that's been worked to flatness. There's a few anomalies along with this, including where this stone comes from versus where it is now, and the fact that most other building all in this area was all done with basalt, which is a dark stone, but this has been done with limestone, just like the outer facings on the original pyramid that we always hear about. So they say 2,000 years old, but they clarify right off the bat, so it might need to be updated once more. An ancient pyramid-shaped megalithic burial has been discovered in North Lebanon dating back to 2,000 years before the pyramids of Egypt. What's more, it's speculated that this and other similar pyramid tombs, what they found in Lebanon now attached to each other, might have inspired the rulers of Egypt to construct their world-famous pyramidal superstructures. Although it's a lot smaller, it's a small variation. And we've also talked about how up in Heirokonopolis that there used to be a few pyramids there, but now there's only the remnants of one that's left. And while none of these are, of course, as big as the giant pyramid that's there, there are some in China that are, by the way, and also in the Americas that are even larger. But we can find pyramids here in Malta and other islands of the Mediterranean, even out the Pillar of Hercules and the ancient Canary Islands and the Guanches have pyramids attached to them. They're all in the ancient world and so on. And so this makes connections that a lot of people try to steer away from, but not I, said the rabbit. Now they did the testing on the Great Pyramid, and they used that newer form calibrated bioluminescence, which you can tell the last time a sun saw actual sunlight. And they calibrated it off the Great Pyramid of Egypt, and then they went to the one in Greece and said, well, how old is this one? And pow, it popped up to be older by a few hundred years than the Great Pyramid. I've got a video about that, so let's just go on with that and talk about another one that's been found, or a series of three, kind of like just like in Egypt. A blazing white pyramid among the blackness. This very well preserved ancient megalithic stone tomb was discovered by Albudazar al-Zien, the Environment Council's mountain guide, while he was hiking near the village of Akrum in the Akkar district of northern Lebanon. Like the sacred Lebanon cedar forest, this region has been inhabited for around 6,000 years, and the pyramidal tomb was discovered on high grounds of Wadi el-Dir. In fact, it looks like if it's for around 6,000 years, that would have been 4,000 BC. So this must predate that a little bit before that point too, because the pyramids dating, if you go with the dating that they have on it, at this 2400 BC range, 2,000 years more, makes it 44, or more than 6,000 years ago. In fact, it comes out to that 6,400 BC that I quite often mention. Not near as often as the Younger Dryas event, which there's a lot of knowledge coming out about that now at 10,500 BC or so. But there was a lot of things happening around this exact date, and if you've been watching my videos, you've probably heard that dating attached to many movements of people and things that are found of people. that are surprising. So, report in the 961 shows the 3-meter high burial structure was very well preserved and relatively untampered with, considering its age. So, no, it's not that large. It's 3 meters high. But then they say, well, the stones that make it up are tons and tons worth of weight. So here we have the starting of this gigantic Neolithic age type people in this area. And the first thing they see are going to be dolmens, which strangely hooks up to people above the Caucasus Mountains and around the Black Sea area, which we've talked about dolmens and how that leads off into European lands, but coming into this area too. What's more, this particular sepulchral monument is different from all others that have been found in the Akkar district because it was constructed with tall, flat, white limestone, where most others were built with basalt, which is, of course, a dark stone, hence the little name they give it there. Now, here's the famous pyramids. We're all familiar with those, and of course you see the smaller ones out front of it, and where they are step type pyramids, and one's been finished off but not solidly with the nice stone. In fact, the only one that has the nice stone left on it is the very cap of the center one that's there, and all the rest of it was dislodged, they say, from an ancient, well, not that ancient, not like we're talking about here, earthquake that dislodged a lot of them, and it destroyed Cairo over here, and what used to be Cairo, and the Wayback Machine, and the people dislodged all of the outer casing stones to rebuild a lot of Cairo that was there. So the question is, could it really be true that the pyramid tombs at Akram, and perhaps the ones in Greece, inspired the pharaohs to build the famed Egyptian pyramids? When you think about the Sphinx ideal too, if it just had wings on it and was more of a griffin ideal, people would be able to make more of a connection with those people too. But can you imagine trying to carve wings out of that, and especially into a stone blob that was never really there before? And a lot of people realize the head has been replaced long ago, and they say, well, it used to be this or that, a lion or a dog like Anubis and so on like that, but its weird weathering pattern shows you it goes back an incredible amount. But the pyramids, regardless of what you say, when they calibrate this bioluminescence off of it, and then they go check the Greek one out, say that it's wrong and that the pyramids are 7,000 BC. Well, then it's 7,400 BC, this one that's in Greece, because they calibrated together and it shows an older dating. So even if the calibration was off due to what our modern thinking is, it still shows as older in a scale. It's just like if you had something that was reading temperature and you misset the scale a little bit and it said that it was 60 degrees when it was 70. Whenever you shoot over here and you shoot over there and this one says 81 and this one says 84, you'll be like, this one's warmer. If you calibrate it to right, it's almost 90 degrees, but still the same gradient goes on of this one's older than that. Were they the prototype pyramids of the Egyptian kings? The tombs at Akram predate the pyramids of Egypt by about 2,000 years. Historical researcher Dr. Manyan Yunus and the NNA think that the pharaohs of Egypt were probably inspired by the idea of the pyramid burial from Akram burials. While this is speculation, the researcher points out that the ancient Egyptians visited the region and stayed there repeatedly. Yeah, most people all know about the Greeks coming down and checking out them, but they really had no idea that the Egyptians had gone far away too. But if you listen to the Greeks, they tell you, well, the Colchians, the people of the Golden Fleece, that they were the same people as the Egyptians exactly, and they noticed it not because of their appearance, but because of their linen, some of their rituals, and the fact that they circumcised. And so he was pretty proud that he noticed that himself when he talked to them about it. They said they both kind of remembered it, but one remembered it a little more than the other. Let's continue. This entire area is abundant with megalithic cemeteries, and according to a report in 1124, the archaeological sites near the village of Menges and Pharadesis in Akkar date back 4,000 years before Christ, 4,000 BC. Al-Lian notes that what is striking about this Akram period shaped burial tomb is that it's made of tall, flat, white limestone, like the pyramids themselves were, while other examples that have been discovered were construction of dark basalt rocks. So we can take a look at this darkened basalt rock effect. Let's see if I can get this back going again. And this is a dolmen that it's showing here in the picture. Wow, I can't get it to react. There it goes. Oh, I've got to be up out of the picture. Duh. Sorry. Dark basalt rock. So you can clearly see the difference between a limestone, calciated structure that's real white, of course, because of the makings up of it, and a volcanic type stone here. Now this is a giant dolmen that they found, but most people think of dolmens as looking kind of like Fred Flintstone's house. Well, if this one did at 1.2 and had a topper and everything for it also. Leaned in on itself and so on, and made this burial thing that got disturbed a whole long ago. Probably nothing under that. I wonder if they've excavated it. But you can see this walkway leading into it too, and a whole squared off area and presentation that's been done here. And it looks like worked stone. But if it's worked stone, it sure would have been eroded a long time ago. Of course, in this area, there's a whole lot more rain and weather that would do this type of weathering than necessarily in Egypt until we go back 5,000 BC or so and back beyond that. And then there seems to have been a rainy period. For Egypt didn't look like it did now. Everybody thinks that it's all a desert. That's not the way it was. The Sahara was green at one time. Did a video about it. Wrote a song about it. Want to hear it? Here it go. So that's remains of basalt dolmen in the Akkar district, northern Lebanon. Memories of Humanity, Pillars of the Economy. Dr. Antoine Dehar is head of the Environment Council at Kobayat, Agassare, and he says there are 3 pyramid cemeteries in the outlying area of the town of Akram Dadaya, close to the border with Syria, modern Lebanon. However, he said that many of these forgotten treasures have been lost due to people's ignorance of the value of these ancient constructions. I think he's really referring to like kids and people modern day, and maybe even some of these war people that have taken the habit of destroying anything that they find that has to do with ancient times, and connectives like this. It just seems like a vengeance type point. But then you also have vandalism and so on. I've seen a few sites recently where they have stuff spray painted on them like it's some kind of graffiti place, and it's really sad that they deface something like this. A lot of times that's just the angst of a kid or a youngster, but let's continue. In a Lebanon 24 article, Professor Daher highlights the importance of the region, saying that there are the paintings of the Wadi al-Saba that belong to the campaign of Nebuchadnezzar before the time of Christ, and that the fortress of Hassan has Roman temples that are still standing to this day. There's been a lot of interaction in this area. In fact, it was kind of a midway going of all kinds of things. But of course, we're talking in the Wayback Machine, and it looks like we're talking about that secondary wave of people that come down through, and this is them staying at one point in this area and then moving on. So one has to ask, whenever we talk about the Colchians and stuff, are they the people that didn't quite move on? Because they tried to connect it with Sensuret's army and this, that, and the other, because they went around and around and around, and maybe people got tired and decided just to settle down. That doesn't make any sense. And where'd they get the women from? Well, ha ha ha. No, it didn't work out that way. But they are the same people, and genetics in a modern day are showing that those ancient Georgian and Caucasus people, just like in the Bible says, had to do with Egypt. Yeah, all of his sons and the way that it worked out, although that's an allegory for the way things really went, because it wasn't just 3 people alive at the time. It correlates to the Bible. I've been through that in so many other videos, and how it hooks up to ancient Sumerian times, and Abraham came from Ur of the Chaldees, and so on. The professor is calling out to authorities to protect and preserve the ancient monuments of Akram and to put an end to the sabotage that affects them. He asks, can the Antiquities Directorate move with the municipalities of Mount Akram which has a modest financial capacity, and with all interested parties and volunteers to protect these treasures, which are the memory of humanity and the pillar of economy for the future. So it'd be a good idea if they kind of saved this heritage night. And so now they're going to need to put a fence around it or do something, have guards, all these things go on. And of course, this involves economic waste. But if they set it up to be a visitation site, it would pay for itself probably and wouldn't be so much a burden. Here's an old picture that's one of those stereoscopic pictures that you looked through a thing that was a whole lot like the thing that you had whenever you were a kid and went on the side and went around. And there's two pictures. So even though it looks kind of exactly the same picture, it's just a hair different. And they took it with two cameras that were slightly separated. So whenever you look at it with both your eyes, it gives you a full stereoscopic view, if you remember. Camel el Hermer is known as the Pyramid of Hermel. It's a famous pyramid tomb in Lebanon dating back to the 2nd century BC, so 200 BC, and there's another pyramid tomb that's there for somebody. Hermel, like Hermes, protecting the traditional home of this pyramid. Lebanon is no stranger to ancient pyramid-shaped tombs, and perhaps the most famous example is Camel el Hermel we looked at, the Pyramid of Hermel. Located 6 kilometers or 3.7 miles south of Hermel in Baalbek, Hermel government. Man, there's a lot of things going on with Baalbek. Dating to the 2nd century BC, this pyramid sits on top of a hill and measures between 19.6 meters, which is 64 foot, and 27 meters, which is a full 89 foot or 90 foot tall, basically, sitting on a base measuring around 1.1 meters or 3.6 feet with 3 steps made from black basalt. This pyramid was heavily vandalized by locals, though, between 2000 and 2018, when all 4 facades of the base were covered with graffiti. Well, that's kind of like what I'm talking about, and that's one of them. Hey, there's CFAPS doing a video about the same thing. In fact, got the same picture onto it. 6,000-year-old pyramid burial tomb found in Lebanon. Only 3 other pyramidal barriers have been discovered in the Akrum area, similar to the one discovered by Alzian, and all of these structures were recently renovated and open for visitors and tourists now. Unfortunately, according to the professor, the ignorance and negligence of the government, combined with their lack of proper efforts to preserve and protect the monuments, means that some of those historical treasures have also fallen to vandalism, and I bet they've been looted and picked at somewhat. But it's built with limestone. They believe that the Lebanese pyramid here, it may have inspired the pyramids of Egypt. So looking at the dating here on it, and if they use that same type of device, it doesn't just read older than by a few hundred years, but a couple of thousand years worth of time. And now we're looking at something that, man, if you looked at it, that would be almost like the Bin stone of ancient Egypt, but some people think that was metal. In a few ways described how it gleamed like metal. And it's supposed to have also possibly been meteoritic rock. But that's kind of like the stone would look like over on the top of that. There's a few little notches around on it, and I don't have a close view of it here, but it looks like there are 4 stones laid together like you start off a card castle whenever you're a kid and everything. Lean 2 up and 2 in onto it, making a pyramid structure, if you can see that. It's too bad we can't get a look around on it, or somebody having a drone and just popping it up from right here and taking a good look around over here and over there. Running a LiDAR across here a couple of times. But it's well known, as they said, that there are quite a few sites around here and that people have been writing them off for years, but just like Catalhoyuk and really Göbekli Tepe, a lot of these sites date back to, what's my catch line of old? Much earlier than previously thought. In fact, here's a pyramid-shaped structure. In fact, am I mistaken in that this is the oldest pyramid-shaped structure by man made out of stone? The Sumerians, they have brick in their work, and either this is work stone. Limestone, too. Wonder what the exact angle situation is on that, because it kind of looks reminiscent. You'd have to look at all of that and the fact of erosions and problems like that. But then again, they're giving it this tomb idea, and that there's probably an acropolis, they're stating, attached to this. It's all the way around it. So much like when somebody famously buries out in some land and then all the locals start burying out there too, it becomes a thing. And one of the key points is that big mausoleum, or that big key point. Same thing was going on in Egypt way back when. Just like they used to wear black in funerals, and it's associated with it and death and everything, and it's still carried on today. There's so much of it's carried on. Ancient Cro-Magnon sites having flowers with their burial and stuff, and we take flowers to a funeral. But here we make a connection with the famous pyramid concept, and some 2,000 years older than the Great Pyramids themselves, and up there in Anatolia. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure your bell's rung, so because very few people are getting their notifications anymore. I did a boo-boo and talked about what they didn't want to. Peace.